so we've got something. Is this going to have an ad? No, it looks like it's right into it. Cool. So the Department of Homeland Security strategy adds white supremacy to list of threats. Recent mass shootings have galvanized the Department of Homeland Security to expand its counterterrorism mission focused beyond terrorists operating abroad. So it looks like the Department of Homeland Security is actually going to take a look at this is actually, yeah, it says guns in America. So this is semi-related to like the gun crisis, as some people call it, that's happening in America right now. Well, let's watch the video first, and then we'll go to the actual article.
Welcome back to Velshi and Rule. For the first time, the Department of Homeland Security is placing a major priority on domestic terrorism, especially from the extreme right. According to the acting DHS secretary, recent tragedies have, quote, galvanized the Department of Homeland Security to expand its counterterrorism mission focus beyond terrorists operating abroad to include those radicalized to violence within our borders. Joining us now, NBC Justice correspondent Pete Williams. Pete, how new is this? How new is this kind of approach, and what exactly will they be doing?
Well, in a sense, brand new. I mean,
Is it though? Is it brand new though? So currently our focus tends to be very like stopping terrorism abroad, which is whether or not that's what we should be doing is a different conversation to have. But there is evidence that the American government has gotten involved before in stopping certain organizations from rising to power, right? Certain things like the Black Panthers, which would have been actually some modern day people would consider them terrorists, which we can go over that as another topic. But there's evidence that the government has been trying to like get in on this for a while. This isn't necessarily brand new. This might be the first time they're actually looking at like white supremacy here, but the government has been involved with anti-counterterrorism efforts for a very long time, abroad and internally. So this isn't exactly new.
The focus on homegrown extremism has existed for several years. Extremists who are radicalized by terrorist groups overseas, radical Islam. Now, the Department of Homeland Security's acting director, Kevin McAleenan, is saying we have to focus as well on the threat of white supremacism and racism and anti-Semitism. He said this has hit DHS hard. For example, the shooting at the Walmart in Texas, he said 6 of the people who were killed in that attack were family members of DHS employees. He said the majority of DHS employees in the El Paso area do come from Hispanic families. So
this is looking at one thing. So I guess they're saying like this is the straw that broke the camel's back, right? This is now like the shooting in El Paso is the reason we're going to start looking at like white supremacist terrorism. But it's not like white supremacist terrorism is something like new, right? It's not like there's like never been incidences of like white people attacking or harassing like people of color before. This is something that's been going on in America, well, since America, really. So I guess now in 2019, we finally decided this is too far and we're going to do something about it. It took us a little bit of time, but we're finally deciding this is a problem.
he said this is something that DHS has to focus on a lot more to realize that this is part of the threat picture. This is going to require, he says, more money from Congress to try to counter. How? By better understanding the problem. The Secret Service does some analysis on this now. He says more needs to be done there. More training for local law enforcement, active shooter training to respond when these things happen, more prevention programs, more outreach to internet companies, tech companies who provide a forum for these kinds of ideas to grow. You may recall that after some of these recent shootings, at least one of these radical websites said it would no longer host one of these groups.
Okay, so that's important, right? There's one thing to like track down and try to stop people that are planning an attack, right? And that's certainly not a bad thing to do. Don't get me wrong. It's another issue to tackle. How are these people being radicalized? What is going through these people's heads to make them think, to actually get them into the white supremacist mindset? By all means, if somebody is planning to like go shoot up a Walmart in El Paso, you want to stop them before they do that. But wouldn't it be better if we like figured out how to stop these people from being radicalized in the first place? And part of that might have to come through like websites and stuff censoring that kind of content, right? Websites refusing to host this kind of content. This goes back into things like YouTube and Twitter and Facebook not wanting to support this kind of like white supremacist idea. And this is deplatforming, which we talk about like every single week. But it's important, right? Because we want to make sure these people don't get radicalized to the point where they're going to like attack someone. We want to stop them before they're getting radicalized at all. That way they're not causing any harm that like we would say is non-violent or something like not as obviously threatening as pulling out a gun and shooting people.
McAleenan says he wants to see a lot more of that and trying to put out a counter message as well. This is a tricky thing for the government to do, but to try to make sure that the only thing that people find online is not this sort of white supremacist thing in the places where they go looking for this message.
Tomorrow, Congressman Joe.
Jeez. And it just moves right on to another video automatically. Is this actually just a transcript? Seeking to steer individuals away from messages of violence. Yeah, so that's really, I think, the best way to combat this. Not to focus so much on, well, we still want to focus on people that want to do harm, but don't let people get to that point in the first place, right? Become like less reactionary. We want to figure out, well, what kind of media are these people consuming that is leading them towards this ideology, right? We can stop these people from like even like wanting to harm people of color by looking at what kind of media they're doing, looking at what's going on in like their local areas. So you mentioned like Ben Shapiro, right? Haven't there been a few like shooters that have listed Ben Shapiro in their manifesto as part of his like inspiration? Right? So, right, and maybe, like, I'm not saying, like, Ben Shapiro is doing this intentionally. We can talk about that as well. But maybe we need to look at, oh, well, if people watching Ben Shapiro are being radicalized, what can we do to stop that? Whether that means talking to Ben Shapiro about changing his messaging, making his messages harder to get, like blocking him on YouTube, for instance. There's probably a bunch of different ways we can look at this to actually have an effect. But looking at how these people are even getting started on this path is probably the easiest way to do it. It's probably the easiest way to do that, and it's probably the best way to do it to, like, have less violence in the end. Yeah, the stuff, like, all over the website. Yeah, there's a lot of Nazi propaganda on BitChute. I'm not familiar with BitChute, but if BitChute does have a problem with, like, white supremacists, like, media, then maybe we need to look at certain ways. Like, either BitChute needs to figure out, well, do we really want this on our platform? Hopefully not, and do something about that. If otherwise, we need to look at, okay, well, what can we do against BitChute, which is openly holding these ideas and supporting it? Right? I mean, we can start, if BitChute is doing this, and you're against it, maybe you need to stay away from BitChute in general, as a means of protest. But then we can also go a little bit further and say, okay, well, what can we do to make sure that BitChute doesn't have the resources to broadcast this kind of content? Right? And I don't know if I like the idea of the government having to get involved with this, but if that means that less people will die, then it's probably a good thing to do, right? Their ideas are banned other places, so they flock to places like BitChute. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if they're going to BitChute now, well, maybe we need to go a little bit further with that then. Like, if BitChute is a problem, we should look at BitChute. But the next thing is, if we get rid of BitChute, where do they go next? You're saying Gab and 8chan? I don't know what I don't know what Gab is. But yeah, if 8chan is another place where these people are being radicalized, maybe we need to look at what we can do to stop them from being radicalized on 8chan. Whether that be, like, completely, like, deplatforming the servers, or whether we need to, like, take action against whoever it is on 8chan that's supporting this. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to, like, stop 8chan altogether. 8chan, like, can't be a website, but maybe they need to look at how are these people being radicalized and do something about it. Right? Somebody is monitoring those websites. Somebody owns them, and somebody is supplying servers in the, like, web space for this. Right? So there's a few different points we can actually attack this from. Maybe we need to attack it from all of them. maybe like even if something like the 8chan moderation team would actually take these things a little more seriously, you wouldn't have to go and worry about trying to like deplatform the website, and that would just be an easier solution in general. All these weird alt-right knockoff sites. So here's the thing: if they're knockoff sites that like nobody really knows about, how do people know about them? Right? They have to be hearing this somewhere. Right? They have to be getting this like this website somewhere. Right? It's something like Twitch didn't just show up one day and it had a bunch of people watching it, right? Twitch got started and then other people had to promote it. Like Twitch had to promote it at first because people aren't just going to find your website. So whether they're getting that through Google, whether they're going on message boards, whether it's through YouTube content, whether it's talking to experts and professionals and getting them to broadcast it, there's a bunch of ways we can go about this. Discord is another place where these people flock to as well. Yep, you're absolutely right. And since then, the Discord team has been like, okay, we recognize this is a serious problem. We're banning this. So Discord in general is like, hey, this isn't a platform where this kind of content is okay. If they find out people are using their services for that, they shut down the whole channel. Right? If I started like broadcasting white supremacist messages on my Discord chat, they would ban me too, right? As they should. That's their way. That's their way of like working against the problem. At the same time, there's a legal means, right? If someone plans like an attack on Discord, like makes it publicly available, all this stuff, there's people talking about it and discussing it together, is Discord somewhat responsible? I mean, maybe they hosted this, they facilitated the discussion, so maybe Discord does have some sort of like actual weight to allowing this stuff to happen, which I'm happy to say Discord has taken action against that. They're banning these channels, they've got a report system. I'm not saying they couldn't be doing more because I don't know the finer details of Discord in general, but they're taking action against this, which is really good. That's the kind of stuff we need to see. Gab, I am not, sorry guys, I'm just not familiar with Gab. Says Gab has also only allowed invite-only membership. I mean, that can be good or bad, right? If the community in Gab were good and it were invite-only, it would probably stay good because everything's very close. But if the community in Gab was already like toxic or white supremacist like we're talking about, then it's probably going to actually get worse, right? I would expect it to only get worse because then you're not even allowing fresh people to come in and talk against those ideas. You're just going to get the same like toxic nature spewing in a circle. It's just not going to vent and go anywhere. I don't know if I like these takes. What about these takes do you not like? Gab will not moderate their content? I mean, that's a problem for Gab, right? By all means, if people are facilitating talking about these discussions on Gab, and then one of them actually goes out and kills people, does Gab have any sort of legal responsibility for allowing this to happen? I don't know. That's why for a lot of things, that's probably part of the reason, like, Facebook and Twitter and stuff are, like, banning people, because they don't want to have any responsibility if someone on their platform actually goes out and kills someone, and they're like, oh, turns out there was an entire Facebook group of people talking about this that were encouraging this guy to go and, like, shoot a bunch of people. I don't like the idea of moderating speech either, but this isn't just moderating speech, like, these are, like, the echo chambers that actually cause people to go out and shoot people of color. Right? Or even if there weren't people of color, like, in general, we don't want people to be in these echo chambers, like, talking to other people, encouraging to go out and kill each other. Right? This is more serious than just moderating speech. This is literally about people dying. Yeah, and if Gab is an invite-only echo chamber, then probably not a good website. It's probably not doing a lot of good. Let's see. But by restricting the speech of people in the most popular spaces, don't you create those echo chambers? You do. So you're right. By restricting people in like Facebook or Twitter from stopping those people from like broadcasting those ideas and discussing them, you're sort of forcing them into these like echo chambers because they have to go find it. They want to go find a new place to stop, right? Which is another problem in itself. But so the other side of that is you should say, okay, we're just going to let it happen, right? So should Twitter just say, okay, well, we're okay with white supremacists being on our website, spewing out their ideas to a larger mass of people, right? I don't even know what Gab is, but I'm sure it has a smaller platform than Twitter, right? So we don't want these people like trying to like infect each other. What if the next mass shooter was using your stream? So it's one thing if they used my stream. It's another thing if they're actually on here, like, people come in saying, hey, I'm going to go shoot up a Walmart. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, like, encouraging them. That's obviously bad, right? If someone comes into my chat talking about, like, wanting to go shoot someone, I probably need to do something about that. Whether that, like, be either trying to talk them out of it, whether that be me, like, silencing them, banning them from my chat so they don't have other people trying to encourage them. I think the reaction is actually really important. But yeah, if I were like on Twitch, like encouraging people to go out and like kill other people, it's not that I should stop streaming, it's that Twitch has a moral and maybe legal responsibility to stop that. Right? If I'm encouraging people to go out and commit violence, Twitch should stop me. Right? And maybe that would mean I would try going to like YouTube or Mixer to like try to like move my platform somewhere else. But at the same time, they should take the same action to stop me. And especially once we're talking about like moving to smaller platforms, that means I can infect less people. That means it makes it harder for people to get access to my kind of content. And that's probably what we